Okay, good morning. We are already off to a fun, laughing start, and I am pouring my coffee right now to be with you guys. Good morning, Max. Thanks for coming on. Good, you've got your very nice, true New Englander. So my first question is always just, what are you drinking? But you just showed us. So does this mean you've already been out into the world and got your Dunkin', or be honest, is that?
Yeah. So we're 3 weeks into baby number 2. I was so good the first time I decided to double down as a dad. And that means I wake up around 4 a.m. and luckily Dunkin' Donuts is open at that hour. And I've been exploring how large the cold brews can go. I'm almost ready to bring my own containers, but not yet. I'm settled on the large for now.
Just bring in your Poland Springs and just like,
yeah, and just say, fill it. Like when you go to a gas station, just fill it up. I don't care what it costs.
Awesome. Okay, well, I always love a good New Englander because you guys drink iced coffee in the middle of winter, and that is a truly unique quality.
Is it the middle of winter? It's the middle of March. Yeah, no, you're right. It is kind of, I guess,
technically winter for a few months.
No, I'll own that stereotype. Sure. Yes.
I'm not a New Englander, so I feel like I can say that and place that on you guys just as a whole. So you guys know me. I am totally having my warm cup of coffee from Bolt, who we had Brian Gibb on last time. He was fantastic, letting us know what actually goes into making coffee, which if I drink it every day, I should know a little bit about it. I don't know how you feel about that. No, you
just I don't know anything about.
You see, it's interesting, right? Hi, Mike. Mike Verrett is here, probably just to make fun of both of us. So,
hey, Mr. Mike.
Okay. So let's give you like a proper introduction, because I always start with the coffee, but then we got to give you a proper introduction. So, Max, you mentioned that you are the new dad to Sadie, second child there. So congrats and thanks for showing up. I know you haven't had much sleep, but we will try to make it easy for you. You grew up with a digital, scalable, residual business mantra coming from your dad. And you've applied that into your business. So you use that mantra to help brilliant people break through the time for dollars plateau, which I've already disclosed to people. This is exactly why I hired you, to help me. So many people are stuck in that time for dollars plateau. Excellent way to put it. So we're hoping that you're going to give us some eye openers, some key insights into how to move forward out of that for a lot of my audience. Some people call you the idea guy, a business coach, a thinking partner, and a product creator. You help agencies productize their consulting services and do other things better too. And you always enjoy a good beer, or in this case, a good coffee.
That's a pretty good intro, Brittany. Thank you.
How did I do?
I think that's a 10 out of 10. You should travel with me. I don't travel, but
I'll be your MC.
We'll just sign in ahead of time and say,
Okay, so with that being said, all of that leading in, and I gave you a solid intro on LinkedIn, I have to ask you a really tough leading question, which is 3 years from now, if you were to call me up and tell me about the last 3 years, something you're really proud of, you say, oh my gosh, Brittany, I'm so excited we're going to speak right now. Let me tell you about what's gone on in the past 3 years. What would you describe?
Raising prices.
Yeah.
I will have continued to raise prices. That's one of the big things, because it means that you're continuing to put more value on your time, and as you get older, you get less time. We're all going to die at some point. So I'd like to tell myself that I will continue to raise my prices as I become more knowledgeable and talk to more organizations that can pay for that. But I look at the kind of business models that I want to go down as a spectrum, because I've gone down them before, and now I've found patience at some point in my life. So congratulations me on that. And right now I am helping people one-to-one. I am back in that time for dollars paradigm, but time for dollars that gives me personal freedom and freedom of money. So that's okay. When you're not running around doing things you don't want to do, for money. That's an okay
Well, I
excuse.
think that's a really important distinction, that that line is going to be different for everyone. And I've noticed myself, my own points of discomfort come when I'm no longer okay with the trade that I'm making. I feel like this time for money thing gets demonized a lot, and I don't want to totally, make it out to be something bad. But I think if you're not examining it, if you're not exploring like those days where you feel resentful about trading your day for money, then the growth never happens. But it's not fully bad.
Well, I tell you what, I think it's the wrong place to start. Like I obviously talk about that a lot. It's how it is the mantra that I had: digital, scalable, residual. I'm a business model person, but the reason I got into business models was because my dad put his personal life first, and that was something that I wanted to emulate. So it starts with putting your personal life first ahead of business. And when you do that, it forces you to make decisions about business that aren't common, that aren't, I'm going to look at what everyone else is doing and do exactly that. You have to think differently in order to, like my dad would say, play tennis every day. Or like me, I got into playing professional paintball. So
that's a great point. How does one get into that?
Lots of time. Yeah. Lots of free time. I just went, my dad would take me to the paintball field, and we'd leave and he'd say, "You want to come back tomorrow?" And these were weekdays. He worked from home, and when we went to Disney World and when we went and played paintball, when we did all these things, he would say, "Max, we can do these things because I have a digital, scalable, residual business model." And I was 5 and I'd have no idea what he was talking about. And he says, "Well, that just means I do something once and I get paid forever." And he explained to me that he got into that kind of business model that everyone looks at him and says, "Oh, you're crazy. Only you can do that, Bob." And, you talk to wealthy people with a lot of free time and, they do the same thing. There's no secret to it. But he put his personal life first. He said, "I want to take my kid to Disney. I want to have him play paintball every day if that's his thing. And I'm going to need to make some decisions about my business and how I make money in order to accomplish that." So, like you said, I do think the time for dollars does get demonized. I do it a lot on purpose to be as opinionated as I possibly can be, to shock people into realizing there is, something else. But yeah, I mean, if you walk in and say, "Yeah, I trade time for dollars, it's $50,000 an hour," I'd be like, "Great, stick with that. That's cool." So it's not one business model is bad and the other is not good. It's just, I think people get trapped in what they think is normal, or what they think they should do, or what they should emulate when they go to the big conferences and everybody's, shaking their pom-poms, telling them how great life is. And instead of looking back and saying, "Wait, what do I want to accomplish?" And maybe that means I work 1 day a week. Mm-hmm. Maybe that means I'm traveling the world while I'm working. Maybe that means I don't work at all for a year. All of these things can be accomplished. You just have to put your personal life first, and then there's going to be some decisions you have to make about your business model and your relationship with money.
Right. That's a great point. I think those are tough decisions that not everyone is willing to commit to. Just to share with people, working with you helped me essentially like double my fee that I was charging. And so although I'm still trading some of my time for money, it's at double the rate. So essentially I have to work half the amount of time to make what I was making before. And that is fantastic, right? Talk about freedom, talk about opportunities, talk about tennis every day. That's my thing. And not only that, it also allowed me to create half of those working hours are not in session with people anymore. That's a huge change for me. So of course I'm still doing work, but it's actually outside of that one-on-one situation, which gives me even some more freedom in essence, right? Like I actually like to sit down at 6 a.m. and do work. No one wants to be in session with me at 6 a.m. So there's also opportunities there that are fantastic, like a midday tennis lesson and, things like that.
Well, your best work is not done during the workday. That's the other thing that I learned from my dad too. It's like, yes, we take time off. We'd go snowboarding, we'd go to Disney World, and we'd do all these things. But when I grew up and I got into professional life, my best ideas would happen on the chairlift. It would happen in those places of space where your brain can relax. And I think when people say, "Oh, more, you're trying to increase your return on effort or make more money and take time off," They don't recognize that that's actually a direct benefit to your business and to your creativity and the way that you can innovate, whether it's your business model or delivering value. So the first step is to charge more. The first step is to make more with your current amount of effort. And then that free space, you're going to do things that you love to do. And you're going to come up with ideas to help people and to provide more value, because that's the kind of person you are. Like you're not doing this to just create more space for the hell of it. You're doing it for all the right reasons. And your brain will force you to have some really good ideas when you're on the tennis court or when you're in the gym.
Right. Yeah. That's a really great point. So I want to challenge you a little bit within that, because I feel like for you, raising prices is a given.
It's only a given when you have more business than you can handle.
Or when you found a way to add more value.
I think theoretically, yes, but every single person I meet is not charging what they should. And it has nothing to do with the current amount of value they provide. If I went to every single one of my clients, provided no extra value, changed nothing, and simply doubled their prices, they would make a lot more money. And they're providing a heck of a lot of value. The thing about entrepreneurs and business owners is we discount our own value more than anybody that we work with. That's a fact. Everybody should double their prices tomorrow, because you know what happens when you double your price? You're going to get a no. And a really valuable conversation is going to kick off as soon as you get a no. No valuable conversation happens when you get a yes. You learn nothing. The only thing that you learn when you get a yes is I should have charged more. Mm-hmm. You don't raise your prices to get that price. You raise your prices to have an adult conversation about where the money's going to come from. And you're trying to find that plateau. You're trying to find the point where people say no so that you can have a conversation about what they can say yes to.
Yeah. We're getting tons of really great comments. I think you can see them from Mike, Verrett, Daya, just really saying this is speaking to them so clearly. Right. And Mike's totally right. We devalue because we're afraid of the no. So what do you think is in that? Because that's a zone that I love to be in. What is going on that stops people from doing this?
Raising prices. One of the most valuable things I ever heard is, if you choose to work with people with no money, you will soon have no money. So I can't just raise prices. I have to then seek out people that can pay those fees, and they're only going to pay those fees if they're getting more value than organizations that are getting less value. So Mike Verrett's a perfect example. He helps people communicate. Mm-hmm. Right. So you find an individual sole proprietor, helping them communicate is worth X. You go to a larger organization where they're communicating to stakeholders and the stakes are much higher. They're going to pay more for the same thing. So people feel stuck. Or when I talk to people about raising their prices or productizing something, if you want to throw buzzwords around, an immediate fear I get from a lot of people is, oh, well, my customers wouldn't pay that. Guess what? You get the wrong customers.
Yeah.
Like, what is preventing you from going and just finding people with more money and quadrupling your prices? Which is what if I was talking to myself 3 years ago, I would, barring the emotional, I probably had to go through a few stages to get where I am, but I would tell my past self, just quadruple the price and get it over with. Because you're going to figure it out. Like when have you ever really truly failed at something? I really haven't. I've struggled, and we as entrepreneurs, we find a way. That's why we do what we do. We find a way. So all we have to do is start thinking about the right questions, or, what we really want our life to be like, and not like, oh, I want to take the weekends off. Like, what do you want your life to be like? And then, okay, what needs to happen? I need to quadruple my price.
So if you were to call me 3 years from now, you're going to tell me that you quadrupled your price.
Well, for working with me personally, for my one-on-one work, yes. Mm-hmm. And I might be working with one client at a particular time, one-on-one, and it's complete product development for me. It's pure curiosity. It's making sure that I still live in the real world. But my business partner has to hold me back from taking the next step. The next step in the spectrum of business models is to teach other people your process. And I've been running my current process for 2.5, 3 years now. And so to me, it feels validated enough to start to teach other people how to do it, so that I can provide this value without me being around. And that's the obvious next step. And, thank God for having a business partner. I've had to invest in curing my shiny object syndrome, which took many years. Just because you have a good idea doesn't mean it's time to pull the trigger on it. And we just decided, you know what, I'm having a baby. Business is going better than ever. So why don't I just take, a month off and be patient with it? It's right there. It's not going away. But 3 years time, a majority of the income will come from that more scalable business model. When I am helping people, it will be one to many. There will be people delivering this process that I've validated here in the current business model, and I'll keep raising my prices because my time will be more scarce. And that's economics. You reduce the supply and the price goes up. So there you go.
Right. So within that vision, because that really gave us a key insight there of what else you're working on, what do you think is the greatest opportunity based on that vision?
Can I ask a clarifying question, or are you just going to tell me that that's the question?
You can ask. I'm not sure what
the biggest opportunity. So my mind reacts to the question of what's the biggest opportunity in a personal way. The greatest opportunity in a personal way, because that's where I kind of start my thought process. So the biggest opportunity for me personally is to create more space. And that's really how I view my progress. Like when I left my agency 6 years ago to do my own thing, I did it because I knew I wanted to create space for a family. And working from home was like the big milestone of like, all right, I want to work from home and I want to work for myself because I'm probably going to get married soon. I'm probably going to have one or many kids. Turns out we have two. And so that was a really good decision. But, a lot of people look at their progress and, am I making more money? Did I get that promotion? I measure my progress based on how much space I create, how much free time. And I do look at that in a matter of hours because it's easy to measure for me. And when I work less, that means I'm spending more time with the family, more time playing golf, more time playing paintball. So I think the biggest opportunity is to look at, my dad always said, if there's an impending event, you can sell anything to anyone. And for all the negatives that COVID has caused, there's a lot of movement in every industry. There's opportunity. There's change. The mentality that really had me develop, a distaste for corporate America. I only lasted 3 months because I realized that corporate America devalued ideas, and I was like, well, screw this. But now, where most organizations had this culture of status quo, now the value of ideas has gone up. Now it's a culture of change. And so I think the biggest opportunity is to help people change, help come up with some crazy ideas that aren't being done, and sell those ideas as a way to get out of your commodity industry or selling time for dollars or doing things that other people are doing. When you sell ideas, it doesn't, require you to, work really. It's what my dad described. You do something once, you get paid forever. So I think we're in a really ripe market for new ideas. And as long as you wrap those ideas in a business model that gives you more value for your effort, then I think you're in a good spot.
So the greatest opportunity is to present ideas, right? Because the landscape is so ripe to accept them or to engage with them.
Yeah, help people find the most powerful change. Because while I would say that that's always, but like that would be my answer always. I think we're in a spot where those ideas will actually be received. Whereas in past years, I've been sort of pessimistic about that being the answer because having a great idea was not sufficient for providing value, because you have to get other people to actually do something about it.
Totally.
And that's where I see the big opportunity is now's the time to speak up and to try and create change in organizations where you previously would have said, yeah, that's never going to happen. We're just going to keep marginally improving.
Yeah. That's definitely one thing that COVID has done is showed us that change is just inevitable, right? And it might come blazing fast when you don't have any choice. But that one, it doesn't kill us, because I think people are so resistant to change, right? Because we're so afraid of what's going to happen. And I think this really like blew that open of like, wow, there's going to be change and it's not going to kill me. So if I'm still left standing here, what am I going to do about it?
Yeah, if the fear of not doing anything outweighs the fear of doing something, then you're gonna do some cool things.
Yeah. So what are you doing about that today?
I'm taking a month off. Yeah. And taking a month off has made me realize that. So what I did is, I work with my clients on a quarterly basis, and I said to my clients, hey, I'm going to give you basically a month for free. It's basically a month for free, right? So we say, if we're working together January, February, March, we're going to work together through April. And because I've been raising my prices, and because I have an incredible sales pipeline, and we're booking business out, into previous quarters, I thought, you know what? I like this month off thing. And when the snow melts, I'm going to have a lot more golf to play. And when COVID's gone or managed or whatever, I'm going to want to go on more vacations. This is a pretty cool quarter. Like 2 months off, 2 months on, 1 month off. So I might do thirds. I might just pull the trigger and say, hey, the year is no longer quarters. I like this thirds. I'll work a quarter. I'll take a month off. And during that month, I'll probably do nothing if I can be motivated to do so. But a good thing to do with that month is say, hey, what actually happened? Take a breather. When was the last time you took a breather in your business for like a couple weeks and just said, all right, what happened? How could I improve? And do all these things. So I guess it's made me realize, like, what is the value of continuously working, of continuously doing it and not dedicating real time to looking back and learning from it. And I couldn't justify that answer. So I think the big idea is what I'm going to do about that right away is make a commitment to inject 3 months off in any given year by saying we're not doing it quarter. Well, we'll work with clients quarterly, but we're only going to do 3 quarters. And after 3 months of working, we'll take a month off and regroup.
I have a friend who takes the 4th week of each month off.
Yeah. That's cool. So I would love to talk to that person and see how that's worked out for them. My guess is it's going to get great reviews.
Well, because he describes that space just like you did, where it's not like you're sitting around twiddling your thumbs. There's deep reflection happening. There's space to explore. There's books to read. There's ways to get uncomfortable and to dive into something that only that amount of time allows for, right? Without having to like check the clock and be like, I had a 2-hour break today to work on my business. Now I'm back into it. Where I think if you really set a tight boundary like that, then it allows the space for your brain to kind of go into those, different areas that you can't with like, oh, I'm taking, 4 hours to work on my business.
Yeah. I would argue a week isn't enough. Like I thinking 2 weeks ago, the first week, granted I was having a baby, so there's some extenuating circumstances, but I don't remember like taking a week off and being like, wow, I'm totally recharged, or like taking a week off and not looking. If I take a week off, I'm going to look at my computer. I'm going to make sure I'm swiping left on emails so that when I come back, I'm not like, oh my God, I have to make up, I have to figure out what happened last week. You take a month off and it's like, I'm not going to be able to follow up. We're going to have to put some systems in place or delegate some responsibilities so that I'm truly gone. But that's just me talking myself into it. Like it probably works out fine for the 3 weeks on, 1 week off thing.
Well, I think if you're making a regular practice of it, like if you've been doing it for years, then I think
and
a week does feel like enough.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe.
I don't know.
And if you have someone, I think someone needs to hold you accountable, like business partners or people that you work with, they're holding you accountable for work stuff. And I think that I think that business partners and people that you work with need to be more serious about holding you accountable for the personal things. And, you know, that's where I've struck gold with a business partner, where she puts just as much, if not more, emphasis on taking time off, on booking vacations and committing to that personal stuff. Cause the professional stuff's going to work out. Like we're going to figure that stuff out. But it's the personal stuff that people just brush right over or say, I'll get to it later. And they never do. And it impacts everything. You get on the phone, all of a sudden you're looking tired. You've got bigger bags under your eyes. You're not as positive. You're not as creative. And it sneaks up on you.
Totally. Big shout out to Katrina, who is your business partner. She's fabulous. You guys, it's worth it to talk to Max just to get to Katrina. Take my word for it.
Thank you.
And the
spotlight's tough. Get me out of it.
She lives what she talks about too, right? She just had a month in Costa Rica. And I think that's the biggest differentiator to me, like to call out a distinction. You can talk about it all day long. And I love calling out people who talk about things like this, but don't do it themselves, because actually doing it, it provides so much information. It changes the way you think about things, which brings me actually to my next question, which is, what is a big breakthrough or insight or eye opener you've had in the past along this journey that has really changed the way you saw business? Like something happened and you said, wow, I can't believe I hadn't seen this before. Right. So you already had a great, I don't want to call it a head start, great modeling from your dad with this digital scalable residual thing going on. Right. But what was an insight or a breakthrough Max had along the way that changed the way that you showed up in your business?
Yeah, well, I won't go too far into it because we've talked about it a lot, but you can sell anything to anyone for any price. There are no rules. And so that was a major breakthrough for me. It happened when I was working at my agency, and I was so tired and working so hard selling content or whatever it was, some commoditized crap that other agencies were selling. And I was on a call with my business partner at the time, a different business partner, and he did a 15-minute call. And I remember him taking these calls, 15-minute calls once a week. And he was charging a $5,000 a month retainer to do that. You do the math, that's 1 hour a month, $5,000. And I looked at him and I was like, okay, there are no rules. And I remember getting on the phone and just started making up prices. I was like, well, today, it's $20,000. And they're like, oh, okay. And I realized that it really doesn't matter. Some people have the money, some people don't. And in fact, for a lot of people, not charging enough tells them that you're not worth it.
Right. It's such an interesting psychology, right?
Yeah. So that's what I would say is one breakthrough. We don't need to go more into that. Another breakthrough, I think, is planning. So if I think back on, I would consider myself successful, not from like a, making millions of dollars type thing, but exactly how I want my life to go. That's how it's going right now. So I consider myself successful in that way. The reason for that comes back to planning. Now you can't plan if you don't know where your current time is going and what you have available from a time standpoint. So I have tracked every moment of my time and I have categorized it for the past 6 years. That's probably the most valuable data set I have available to me. Is like what I actually spend time on and what are the results of me spending time on those things. Because I know that our planning sessions, when Katrina and I plan for the year, we then plan for the quarter. Every month we plan. Every week we meet on Monday morning before the week. We have Mondays blocked off. Monday is our planning day. And we set up the entire week exactly how we want it. We take control over our calendar. We don't give people links and say, have at it. I've got an assistant that manages my calendar. We know exactly how many calls I want to do, what kind of calls on what days. I have made my calendar a science, and it has impacted confidence, free time. But the feeling when you wake up and you just feel like, oh, there's so many things, I got to do. Let's just get started. You lose the thinking, you lose the thought, you lose control, and that bleeds into everything. So I think the biggest breakthrough has just been religiously planning my own, life as an account, and being held accountable for it, and really dedicating time to that.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. That's so important. It's something I spend a lot of time on with my clients too. People have a lot of narrative, a lot of stories around how they see their time. There's status now around being so busy and being slightly overwhelmed. So it's a really interesting idea. And I think just not even popular, not common that people take that much charge of their time. I definitely have not heard of people having that much information about their time. So that's remarkable.
Well, like think about any professional sport. Any professional sport, the amount of time that they plan versus the amount of time that they execute is heavily weighted on the planning. Like any football, I don't know why football's coming to mind, but let's take football. The amount of time that they plan for that game by looking at video of the other players, by in drills, running each play that they do over and over and over and over. They're spending days. They're spending all this time on the planning. The game takes 2 hours. So I think having been in a professional sport where I've seen the value of that planning, and like, yeah, we'll drill for 2 weeks to run a 30-second play one time at a tournament. The same is true about business. And I think people get giddy and get kind of worried that, oh, I'm spending all this time planning, but I'm not making any progress. I need to get on the phone. I need to hit the phones. I need to do this, brute force. They're missing that, like, hey, that planning is allowing you to do less and have a bigger impact. Right. But I tell you what, when you get better at it, you're going to open up a whole host of emotion and limiting beliefs that you didn't know existed. Like, I was not prepared for being successful with my personal time. That's something that nobody told me about. Is like, hey, when you start spending less time working, you're going to feel like you're going to feel really bad. You're going to feel guilty. And getting over that guilt's probably been the hardest thing to do. Because that's what we're kind of wired for. We're wired to suffer.
So this is you're like totally in my favorite zone right now, which I love. Can you tell us more about that narrative where you find yourself like, oh my gosh, technically I've just arrived, right? Like I've got this free afternoon. And then is the story around the guilt more like I should be working more because my friends are working more, or isn't this the time where I'm supposed to be working harder? Or if I don't work harder now, I might cost
it's much deeper than that. Unfortunately, I have no problem watching my friends work their ass off and me going and play golf. I have no problem with that.
Okay, so tell us.
But it's much more deeply seated. It comes from your childhood. When you saw your parents sacrificing and going to work and coming home tired, and you were told, like, look, this is what you have to do. You have to suffer to make the money to do the things that you want to do. And so from a very early age, that's what we're taught. The short way to say it is that just that's our culture. Like, that's what America is. America is, the land of opportunity. You work your ass off and you can do anything. America isn't, hey, it's the land of you can work very little and have a lot of value. That's not what we were taught. So our self-worth is often synonymous with the amount that we're suffering. And it's unfortunate. And luckily I grew up in a household that was the opposite of that. Because my dad had experienced that with his father, where made plenty of money, but he was never around. And my dad kind of broke the trend. I'm a 4th generation entrepreneur, so we had plenty of tries. But he said, no, I'm going to put my personal life first and see how that works. And so that was the household that I grew up in. So that's why I want to help spread that word and lead by example, but show people that, look, regardless of what you were taught as a kid or how much your parents suffered, like it doesn't need to be how you run your business. Yeah.
Awesome. So, suffering is a mindset. So I often ask people, what if this
when I say suffer, I mean, you do things that you don't want to do. That's suffering to me. Like, I have an acute awareness of doing things that I don't want to do. Katrina will attest to this. I have zero patience for it. I am immediately suffering as soon as I'm doing something I don't like to do. And you can see me like physically start like moving around in calls. I'm like, this is not what I want to talk about. Like, it's just like, I think in the questions you sent me, you're like, what's your biggest downfall? It's like, I have zero tolerance for shit that I don't want to do. But what was the question? Suffer.
Well, that actually is my next question. What's the one thing that's going to hold you back? So I asked this a few ways, but I'm most interested in this. So when we come back to that vision that you hold, right, for the 3 years from now, when you're going to call me up, what's the one thing that's going to hold you back from achieving that?
My fear is that I lose interest. I really like hanging out with my wife and my kids. I really like golf. I get really into things. Like I'm an addicted personality. Like I got into paintball, I became professional paintball. I'm into golf. Like I'm golfing all the time.
Yeah, you're like all in.
Yeah, I did the parent thing. I'm awesome at that. You know, I have the right business partner there too. No, but yeah, I think that my biggest fear is that I lose interest. Like this process that I've created and what I'm doing now, I think it represents the biggest opportunity in the marketplace for me today, but it will need to change. And at some point, I'm just not going to want to build something new. And I just hope that at that time, when I run out of the energy to build something new, I've created enough annuities and created enough revenue streams and put the right people in place so that I can continue to provide value, continue to make money while really not doing much besides, you know, coming up with ideas and doing the things that I enjoy doing with people.
What if you got bored because you found something else, right? Like, what if that's just a sign of your growth?
Yes.
Like, I doubt you're just going to become a couch potato. Like,
yeah, well, right. But that is what if I fear, like, I don't fear not being able to figure out a situation. I've always been able to figure out a situation. But I have noticed the trend is like, I don't have as much energy as I did when I was working 40 hours running an agency. And I don't have as much energy as I did the first year or two that I went out and worked for myself. I worked the hardest and was like most passionate about my work during COVID because it forced us to change everything. And I was like, all right, yeah, here's a challenge. Let's go. But, yeah, I think that from my personality, what I fear is that I lose interest. And that just means I need to keep it fresh. And I think having a business partner that holds me accountable for changing the business model. And, you know, if we don't have a COVID in 2022, creating my own little COVID, creating my own little crisis that like, oh, we're going to make up a crisis and you're going to have to take 6 months off. Yeah, let's figure that one out. Like I could see myself doing stuff like that just to keep me on my toes.
Okay, I'll take that. So knowing that about yourself, right? That you might have to come up with these like fire drills in a sense that will keep it fresh for you or keep you on your toes. What's the number one behavior that you can start doing or amplify to keep you on that track to get there?
Delegation. 100% delegation. And that's been a new thing for me. Thank you, Katrina. I like to say I delegated delegation. Turns out I'm bad at delegating, as most entrepreneurs are. We think what we do is so special and no one else can do it. It's not true. There's like 1 or 2 things that you can do that no one else can do. And the rest of the stuff should be delegated. You might need a very specialized individual. You know, you just can't hand anything to anyone. But that is that I think is the number one skill set. Because in order to create change, I'm going to need space. Like I'm not going to be able to change if I have 5 clients and I'm working 90% of my time on those clients. I'm going to need to be in a situation where I'm 10% committed to clients and 90% open to new ideas and creating something new to manage a new situation. So I think we could all delegate more and really have, and this is where that planning comes in, having a regular practice of identifying things that need to be taken off your plate because they don't represent the most valuable, unique things that you're doing.
Beautiful. Super insightful. How can people find you? What's a good way for them to engage with you, learn more about what you're up to?
That's a really good question. One day my dad asked me, do you remember any of the names of the companies that you work with? I said, no. And he said, well, do you remember any of the names of the people? I said, yeah, Brian, Bill, all these people. So he just kind of slapped me around. He said, maxtraylor.com. Like I bet, I was like 3 websites in or something. So you can find me at maxtraylor.com. If you know my name, you know how to find me. LinkedIn, Max Traylor, maxtraylor.com. If I've ever emailed you, I put my phone number on every email. So it's really easy to find me.
Right. Awesome. And you have a cool show, Beers with Max, which is a fun way to learn about what you do and hear your commentary, I guess.
Yeah. Well, my dad always said, surround yourself with brilliant people. And I don't have a line outside my house of brilliant people. So I created a line on the internet. And it's, you didn't ask me about one of the most valuable things I've done for my business. Well, sure you did. That was the raising prices thing. But the other thing is you need to consistently speak with the people that can pay you the most, not consistently sell to the people that could pay you the most. You just need to be like, you need to have the conversations. If you're not at a water cooler, you need to create one for yourself. My grandfather said, you need to know the territory. My dad said, you need to surround yourself with brilliant people. It's all the same thing. You need to get in front of the people that have the potential to pay you.
Right.
And so I forget what the question was, but
and that's what your show is about.
That's the show, right? That's the show.
Just bringing it back for us.
Yeah, just talking.
Hey, this has been a fantastic conversation. I know that others share that sentiment if you read the comments section. So thank you so much for sharing your genius and your eye-opening experiences with us. It's super valuable. You guys, thank you for being a part of the conversation, giving your comments, letting us know what really resonated with you. It really helps me shape the show to make sure it's continually eye-opening for you. Thanks so much for joining, and you will see me next week with another fun guest Friday at 9:15. Max, stay on with me for a minute, okay? Bye, everyone.